welcome to your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, your host. I just started a video a moment ago, but for some reason the connection was fairly poor, so it just cut me out. So forgive me, I'm going to have to start again, but the content is still going to be worth it, I assure you. I'm going back to sharing because I didn't get as many views as I thought I would on this page. You all abandoned me last week, so I'm going to go back to sharing it everywhere. So you see my ugly mug everywhere. And then we'll begin. Hopefully we won't have as many issues in terms of connectivity. Right, we are good to go, I think. So today's episode is going to be one of three, and it's going to be the how to ensure your developments are a success. So hello and welcome to your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, your host. Today we've got a really exciting topic for you. It was asked for by a few people within the circle, so we're going to discuss it, and that is how to ensure your developments are a success. So this is a huge subject. There are so many moving parts. So this cannot be done in one 20-minute movie. It needs to be done in quite a few videos. And realistically, to get to a competent level, you need to have hours and hours and hours on this. So I'm going to give you a really basic overview of how to ensure your development is a success. First of all, we need to define what is a development. A development is something that involves, it's not just painting a house. For me, the definition of a development is something that involves structural work, be that adding walls, painting, carpentry, plumbing, like where you have to get trades in and manage a project from start to finish. That's what I consider a development. So you've got your deal. Fantastic. Let's assume it's a HMO because that's where I'm most knowledgeable. Step one. You've got your deal. You need to instruct an architect. So we're not doing a 6-bed because potentially you could get away with not doing it with an architect, although I'd still advise it if it's your first one. So let's say it's an 8-bed. Instruct an architect. Then what you do is you give him an overview of what you want, and he will then do the drawings, not in detail, but an overview drawings, and do the elevations, like show what the front of the building, the side of the building is going to like, the floor plans, and he will submit that to the council. That is you submitting a planning application. Then what you need to do, you need to wait for the process of the council, which can take a few weeks, it can take a few months, it depends on how quickly or how inundated they are with planning applications. So you will have to have a short period of public consultation. This means the public gets a comment, and what happens is letters get sent out to every single person within the local area saying, this is what the person plans. Do you have any objections? Can you post them here? And typically, because it's a conflict of interest, most people will respond negatively because everybody wants cheap houses, but nobody wants cheap houses next to them. And when they're responsible for their little area, they tend to have lots of comments where people will say, no. And it's completely broken. It's a massive conflict of interest. So planning accepted. Well done. You've trodden through the muck and mire. You've got your planning. Now, the next stage, and this is all before the first builder has even been contacted. You need to have all this in place before, like 70% of a build is done prior to the first tool being picked up. So at that point, you need to look at the planning application, and if you get planning, they will give you something called conditions. So they will say, yep, you've got planning, but only on these certain conditions, and they can range from a whole plethora of things. They could be, have a tree here, have this bike shed here, make sure that there's insulation that blocks out the sound, so many decibels. I don't know how many they are, they just place them in there and then you have to deal with them. So you've got your planning. You then need to ask for your architect for building drawings in detail. What do I mean by this? So they will do two things. They will do outline planning permission, which they'll send to the council. Then the council will go, yep. Then they need to do building drawings in detail. This will take slightly more time. It will involve a lot more technical drawings. It will involve, for example, where the electrics are going, where the plumbing's going, the sort of the sloping of the drains, where they're going to get placed, where the soil stack's going to get placed, and they have to do a plan that is within building regs. So once they've done that, and it will take them a week or so if they're primarily working on your case, normally a month. So this is time that you need to wait, especially from bridging. It can be expensive. You get your building reg drawings back. At this stage, there might be some structural works as well. So you want to send this building reg drawing plan to a structural engineer and to a building reg company. And what you want to do, the building reg company are going to say, where's the structural engineer? But just to save on a bit of time, you want to send them the preliminary building reg drawings while you're waiting for the structural engineer to come around and give his opinion on what is needed. So eventually you will, so there are three entities here. You have the architect, who will need to draw up plans, and then you will have a separate entity. Sometimes the builder will say, I will do building regs for you. You don't want to do that. I wouldn't advise that. You want the building reg company to be answerable to you. So when something goes wrong, you are in the know and it's not covered up. Because eventually, essentially, this is your project. You're going to keep it forever, hopefully, if you're smart about wealth and building long-term capital interest. So you want the building reg company answerable to you. You want the architect answerable to you. You want your structural engineer answerable to you. You don't want to have an architect that has everything in-house. Although it sounds fairly good, you want different opinions on various things. So any problems that arise, it's found early and it can be rectified, as opposed to it being covered up if one outfit can do it all. So you've got your building reg drawings. Send that to the building regs and to the structural engineer. You will then get the structural engineer calculations back after he's done his visit. You then send that to building reg drawings. They will go either yay or nay. If they say nay, you need to go back to your architect, say change the plans, whatever. If they say yes, that's great. You've now got plans that you can take to a builder potentially, and the building regs company will come and sign it off. They'll have to come out in stages, and I'll explain more about the elements of what they do later on and further on in this series, because this is going to be one of three. So building reg drawings, fantastic. You've got them. You've sent them to the structural engineer. Now you need to look at the conditions that say pre-work conditions. So when you get planning, you get conditions imposed upon the project, like I said earlier, and some of those conditions will need to be discharged before the works begin. And it may involve, for instance, a sound engineer coming in, testing what the area is like beforehand. So you'll need to have that done prior to getting a builder in, and you may need to get surveys done. You may need to get soil surveys done. You may need to get decontamination drills, or say if there used to be a garage or whatever. And some conditions will happen while the works are occurring. For example, they might impose a condition that you need to use a certain type of windows, which they have done on us. And then there are post-work conditions, which means you have to go to the council and get them discharged after the works have been done, and they'll come out and check. For example, we had a billboard on the side of a building that needed to be taken off. We had a tree that needed to be planted in a corner, and that needed to occur. And if it didn't, they would have told us off. So be aware of these conditions, because they're a bit of a pain to do. And most architects won't do them for you. You'll have to learn and go through the planning portal and get the surveys and upload it. Delicious. So we're still not even engaged builders. So this is what a gentleman, Richard Little, I quite like his phrase. He calls it hurt money, because potentially the project could still go awry. You're putting in all these surveys, you're putting on all this planning, and it still might not go ahead. So you have to put forward this money, and potentially you're going to just lose it. So if this is your first time doing a development of any kind, development, I say like 50K plus, because I'm constantly coming across people who part with money and they haven't done any of this, and you're setting yourself up to fail. Bearing in mind, if this is your first project, you've only got one whack at it. You've got to get the first one right, because if it's your third or fourth one, you can probably take the hit in terms of your business being capable of losing money, or being able to shoulder the burden of a bad deal. If it's your first one, you're out of the game and you're starting again. It's going to be really, really difficult to come back from that. So don't do it cheaply the first time. If you do it cheaply, you pay twice, and the chances are you'll pay more than what the original quote was anyway. So get a QS, and a QS is a quantitative surveyor, and they will go around. You tell them what you want, because if you tell a builder, I want a HMO, and you say that to 3 different people, you will get 3 different interpretations of what a HMO is, and they will quote you And it's very difficult to compare the quotes because they've all got different expectations of what you want. And what happens is your expectations are here and theirs are here. So you think everything is involved when in reality, it's the bare bones. And a builder makes his money once he's on site. So you have all the power when he's not on site. As soon as he gets on site, the balance of power changes and they will do anything that they can possibly can to get more change out of you. They will just don't trust them. Never, ever trust them. You need to have everything prior for the first tool picking up. So get a QS and they will go around and they will price every single thing. They will say, we need 56 screws for the doors because there's going to be 5 doors. We need 6. It's a complete horrid job. And I'm glad I never became a QS because I feel for them. It must be so mind numbing. They calculate every brick, every screw, every pound of mortar, every pound of plaster. They calculate everything and they say, this is what you need. Then with this schedule of works, it's called, you'll pay a QS about 250, 300 quid for this. And it'll take them a day or two to do. Excuse me. So with this schedule and with your building drawings in detail and your structural engineering calculations, you have a little pack. And also you need to have your builder's contract in that. You're going to struggle to get a builder who's fairly small scale to sign a JCT on a 50k project. It's just going to be difficult. You'll get people on the internet say, sign a JCT, yeah, do it. Oh, I've got a builder. I haven't come across one of them. They all tell me to F off. They're not doing it. But they will sign a loose contract of what they're providing. And you factor the QS's schedule of works into this. And what you want to do, you want to break it down into weekly payments. Do not pay a builder up front. If they can't sustain themselves for 1 week without a payment, then they're not somebody you want to work with, because that shows you a huge lack of fiscal planning. If they're not able to sustain themselves for 1 week without any money, how secure is your job going to be? So just walk away from it. You're going to get so many no's when you say, listen, I ain't paying a thing. Because the first week, what's going to happen is they're going to go back to brick and they're going to strip out. That doesn't cost any money. It might cost them a few skips, but they can defer the payment until it gets collected on the Friday when you hand them that first wad of cash. So essentially, the first week is going to be their wages and a little bit extra for the materials next week. And that's how you want to plan it. And keep looking for a builder until somebody agrees for that. Don't agree to stage payments of the works or fixed price or like any sort of scenario where there isn't a time involved. So there's a few things you want in your tender pack. So let's call it a tender pack because that's what it is. You want your QS schedule of works. You want your building reg drawings. And then you want your structural calculations. Then you want, personally, you want to write this into a contract and you want to hold back 5% of the total job for 3 months for anything that breaks. Because if you don't hold anything back, you won't see them again. There'll be so many, like before they're on site, they'll promise you the world. I can guarantee it. They'll promise you they'll sacrifice their children to a god in the sky just to get on site. They'll do anything possible to get on that site. Once they're on a site, it will be completely different. And I've never come across any builders that think about money in the future. They only think about tomorrow's payment. This has been my experience. Every single one. They think about tomorrow, the money on Friday. That's it. They don't think about the money on next Friday. So they're just wanting to get as much out of you as they possibly can now. And that's been my personal experience. So have 5% of the total contract held back, have it for 3 months, and that's going to be a guarantee for snagging when stuff breaks, and et cetera, et cetera. Have a time constraint. So if they don't say it's going to take 8 weeks, say how many weeks do you think this is going to take? I'm going to put that in the contract. So that has to be a bit flexible because you're going to hand them the list of the job and then you're going to get different weeks from different builders. And typically, an 8-bed HMO will take about 12 weeks. That's what I've found when you're a really good team. Have weekly paid and have the jobs broken down weekly. So if, for instance, week 2 is they need to plaster or do the first fix carpentry, for example, and if it's not done, don't pay them. You need to have some stones about you. Stick rigidly to the contract because you need to have this contract on you because they'll forget about the contract, just like you. They're human too. And come Friday, if they haven't done their part of the bargain. Because what happens in every single project is costs can get away from you. You can be spending out more than what work has been done. And it, like, if you let it sit on the first couple of weeks, it just gets more and more and more. And suddenly, week 10, you've paid all the money. And then you have no power, and they're going to be wanting paying because they won't manage their funds. They'll spend it as soon as it comes in. That's my view on it. No one has ever been able to think, right, there's $4,000 here, $4,000 there, I've got 12 grand, wages are 6 grand, we need 6 grand of materials, we're going to struggle to do this week, so we may need to save some. They don't think like that. Or as soon as that money goes on Friday, you'll get some materials for the following week, and then it all goes out in wages. Very, very few builders have a kitty where they can absorb costs. So you have to be fairly flexible, but also rigid. If that means they're working Saturday and Sunday and they'll hate you for it, rest assured, but it'll only happen once. So say you, for example, say first fix carpentry can usually be done in a week because it's just the studding of, say, 8 bathrooms. It's fairly simple for a team of about 5. If that's not done, don't pay them. Say, listen, here's the contract. You said you would have this done at week 2. This isn't my fault. This is on you. And what tends to happen is you'll get so much social pressure because the manager won't take responsibility. In my case, is what I found. They will go, hey, listen, the client's not paying. They won't say to their boys that, we didn't I said that we could do this in week 2 just to get the job, and maybe it was my fault being a bit too ambitious. That won't come out. It'll be like, that dickhead hasn't paid us. And that will be and you'll have to be like, no, you ain't getting paid. Here's the contract. Be really, really rigid. This is what we agreed. This is what you said you could do. You haven't done it. You ain't getting paid. You're working Saturday until the job's done. Then you get your money. And that manager won't have the money to pay his guys. So it'll be quite a hostile environment normally. But if they have to walk away from the job, let them walk away from the job. You don't want to be out of pocket. Stick to your contract rigidly. Because otherwise you'll see it. So it happens so many times. People pay too much money when there hasn't been that much work done. You don't want to pay in lieu. You want to pay after the work is done. Everyone else works first and gets paid. So why not later? Why not the same for builders? And on the flip side, you have to also be a good payer. If they've done the work and you haven't paid them Friday, expect to be like called out because it's not fair. If they're doing what they say they're going to do and they've done a good job, they need paying. It's 50-50. You can't be one of those, like, don't make them chase their money. That's so rude and disrespectful for their time, because these trades have worked for so long and they've become experts at their craft, and they'll be able to do things way faster than you and I as the investor. If they've worked all week and they've done what you said you've done, and then they have to call you up on Friday, there should be no calling up. You should be looking there on a Friday, seeing that the work is done, and the money should be in the bank before they even go ask. That's the sort of culture you want to get. So they then think, if I do the work, I know I'm getting paid. There isn't any chasing. There isn't any annoyance, because I speak to them time and time again. So many people get screwed over. There are bad customers and there are bad builders. And eventually you will be filtered out of the industry. You can't survive like that. You need to pay your guys, and the tradesmen need to do the work. And very often it's not the tradesman's fault. It's the managers being too optimistic and not being able to have supplies on site, and not being able to have, give the guys a kick up the ass when they need. But that isn't your fault. That isn't. So just have your contract, say, listen, guys, this is what was agreed. It didn't happen. You ain't getting paid. You need to work tomorrow. And trust me, it'll only happen once. And all the excuses will come out. They'll be like, I can't feed my kids this weekend. You're taking money out of my kids' mouth. And they'll do it. There's no pride. It's really, really shocking to see, actually. I've had builders cry in front of me because they need to hang a door. It's really bizarre. But when you get the good ones, pay them on time. Everyone deserves to be paid for the work that they're doing. So penalty bonus, and also penalty and bonuses. So structure this into your contract. If he tells you it's going to take 8 weeks, say how sure, drill down, how sure are you of this? And they say really, really sure. Okay, brilliant. And if you're happy with that date, say every day you get it earlier, give them a bonus. Every day you get it late, take a penalty. And what will happen? It'll get done in 10 weeks, but that's obviously a win-win, because you want it done sooner, because your chances are you're on bridging, and that's bloody expensive anyway. And paying them a bit of a bonus. So I pay £150 a day. I did. In fact, it never finished on time, so it was always a penalty. but that's not really too important. Also, in this contract with a QS, you need to like highlight which stuff you're supplying and highlight which stuff they're supplying. So my advice to you is everything that you can see, you supply. So your paint, your doors, your door handles, your door closers, your kitchen, your floors, your furniture, your architrave, your skirting. Otherwise, you will get the lowest quality stuff that you won't want to show your worst enemy, and you won't be a property to be proud of, because obviously they're going to try and make money. They're not here for charity. Builders are not here for charity. They want to make money. We're all here to make money, and there's enough for everybody. So just make sure that everything you can see, so light fittings, architrave doors, as I said, the kitchen, the flooring, the bathroom suites, make sure you supply, or else you'll end up something from equipment from like faulty towers. It'll be really, really horrid. Or you'll end up with low quality stuff that constantly needs repairing, like in one of our deals. And as soon as we started purchasing it ourselves, we had no issue. It was fantastic. So the stuff that they're going to supply is the stuff you can't see: joists, plasterboard, bricks, mortar, roof tiles, insulation, all that stuff. You just let them supply and factor that into your cost. Once you've written all this up into a contract, the only thing that you need to be a bit more flexible is about the penalty bonus and the time, because you have no authority to decide how long it's going to take. Let the builders decide that, because if somebody wants to take his time and be meticulous, and that's that sort of person's mentality, then fantastic. But if somebody wants to rush and sort of knows your investor and knows that maybe you don't want it as completely, totally perfect, you just want it looking good so you can get it let, because in reality, the tenants don't really mind as long as it's clean, smelling clean, and everything works. It doesn't matter if the architrave is not perfect, and if you let somebody work like that, you'll get a job done much faster, and overall the return will be higher. And let's be honest, guys, we're not in it to make fantastically wonderful, perfect properties. We're in it to make money. So don't be too strict with the snagging. Just make sure stuff works. Then you start to engage builders, and you have to respect their time. So my advice to you as well is, if a builder comes in and gives you a detailed quote, goes through all your stuff, pay them for their time, because it takes a lot of bloody work. And for them to then maybe not get the job, just chuck them maybe half a day's rate, which is usually about 75 quid to 100 quid, whatever it is, because they'll spend a lot of time on this quote. And you want them to be really, really detailed and thorough with the quote. And say if you only get 2 or 3 builders and they're able to give you an accurate price, they would have spent lots and lots of time. And it doesn't hurt to respect their time. And for goodness sake, don't be one of those knobheads that doesn't call up and say, listen, you haven't got it. Thank you for your time. Don't be one of them. It's so disrespectful, because they would have spent a lot of time. I'm going to say it over and over again. Respect their time, because you want them to respect yours. And you don't deserve respect unless you give it. So pay them for their time, even if it's a quote and you've decided you're not going with them, if they've done a really, really detailed quote as a main contractor. Because they would have gone to building suppliers, they would have gone to electricians, subbies, they would have got all these quotes. They would have spent a good few hours, maybe a whole week of evenings, contacting people, sourcing materials, sourcing trades. So it doesn't hurt just to say, you didn't get the job, but thank you for giving me such a detailed quote, because potentially this builder might get into the one you choose, might get 2 weeks into the job, and then you're like, you ain't getting this job. You're so far behind. I can see that you're a complete bag of poo. I don't want to work with you. They might be turning up late. They might be whatever, because you're never going to know somebody until you really sort of start to work with them, and the stress and sort of like the shiny facade begins to buckle and gets under pressure. So these other builders you might need to approach to say, can you come in on the job? We picked someone, decided they were a bag of shit. You were the most professional person next to that person. Would you like to come on the job? And if you've paid them for their time already, you already got your foot in the door, and it'll be wonderful for the builder to then just hop on, because it's very, very hard to get a builder to start somebody else's job, because then all the power is again in the builder's hand. So you've engaged your builders. You want to engage at least 3. I would say 5 or 6 is probably a good number. And when I say engage, 5 or 6, I mean, get them on site and quoting, because you're going to have to engage about 20, 25 builders, because so many won't turn up. So many won't reply to your calls, because if they're a good builder as well, you'll probably be booking them in for 6 months' time because they've got work booked. Don't go to somebody who can promise you the earth. If somebody can start on Monday and you contacted them on Saturday, why aren't they busy? And unless they've got a big team and they're doing multiple projects, you don't want that, because, again, massive generalization, but everyone I've met has been the same. Really bad planners. They'll rob Peter, get a pull off a job to finish this job, then finish, and they're all sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. So if you have a builder that does multiple jobs, don't bother. You want the team that just hops from one to one to one to one. And if you need to wait, wait. My advice would be wait, because if they're saying, no, I will not jump onto your job because I've got another job, what does that tell you about the character of the person? It tells you he wants to finish the crap that he's got behind him before he moves forward. He doesn't want anything hanging him back. And it's a really, really good way to live. In any case, I would never recommend doing multiple projects. There'll be some people out there who are happy doing dozens, but for me, I'm only ever going to do one at a time, just because it's more manageable. And like, there's no point in overextending yourself and losing it all. Why not just be not greedy, be slow and steady, do it over 5 years. 5 years is going to pass anyway, so why not be rich at the end of it rather than burning the candle at both ends, trying to do multiple projects and then it all going under, just like it did for us. We had a horrible project because we were doing too many things at once and quality control wasn't being monitored. So you've got your quotes. One thing, and I'm going to stress this, do not trust anything anybody says unless you see it with your eyes and feel it with your hands. It didn't happen. So that means be on site on a regular basis. Be an active person on the site. Be involved. Don't just hand it over and then walk away. Do not do a build if you're 50 miles away or 100 miles away and don't visit. You need to be visiting 2 or 3 times a week. So when there's a build for us, so these bullshit excuses, I'm in full-time work, I've got that. Don't get involved then. Don't do projects, just buy vanilla buy-to-lets, because you need to be on site. You need to be cracking the whip. For me, when I was in London and I had projects in Hartlepool and Birmingham, I'd finish work at 4 and I'd be in the car and I'd drive up 2.5 hours to Birmingham, check the work, pay the guys for the day and drive back down. Because if you're expecting to be a success in the business, you have to sacrifice early on when you're in your full-time job. And that usually means plonking another 40 hours onto your existing 37, if you're in a full-time job, to work on your business. I'm sick to death of people coming up to me with their projects have gone wrong and I don't see them on their site. I don't see them on site on a regular basis. Oh, they weren't on site yesterday. Well, where were you? Oh, I was doing this. And that's why they weren't on site, because you weren't cracking the whip. The first time they don't turn up, you say, listen, why are you not here? Like, be that really, really active client where they know they're not going to get away with it, but also be the person where they're happy to work for you because they don't have to chase payment. They shouldn't have to chase payment. I'm going to say that again. They shouldn't have to chase payment. So 2 site visits minimum, and 1 is on a Monday morning if you can, reminding them what they're going to have to do this week to get paid on a Friday, and then also a Friday before you pay them. So that means if you finish work at 5, that's too late to pay the builders. It's too late. You need to either come up on the Thursday night, see where they're getting, see if they're finished, and then get pictures from the builder, like write a list of what needs to be done. Say, I want pictures of all this tomorrow before the wages get transferred. And normally they'll do it. And then you pay the guys. They shouldn't have to ask you for payment if they've done the work. It should be right in their bank accounts. So regular visits. Do not pay without visiting. I'm going to say this again. Do not pay without visiting. You are setting yourself up to being ripped off. You really, really are. So you want the whole quote divided in equal weeks. So sometimes that will involve you borrowing from different weeks. So for example, maybe week 8 is the kitchen and the payment is only, say, $6,000. They will absolutely not save money up for each week to pay for the kitchen. It's not going to happen. You'll have to borrow from weeks in front. So just make sure you do that. So for example, week 8, you've got 4 weeks left, 4K or 5K, let's say that. So you've got 20K, kitchen is 5K. I ain't going to do that math. Kitchen is 8K. Borrow $2,000 from each week. Otherwise, you'll stall and you'll end up paying too much out, and then you'll have to pay more for the job, because once that money goes in the bank and the materials are bought for the week, the rest gets spent. It gets spent on labor. It gets spent on it. I haven't met a good fiscal manager when involved in building. Let me have a look now. So building regulations. So as I said before, don't let them be control of building regs. You be in control. So you're the one calling up saying, listen, foundations are dug. Get your butt up here. Tell me if they're good. Brilliant. Up to damp. Get your butt up here. Tell me if they're good. Brilliant. Up to the roof. Get your butt out here. Tell me if it's good. Brilliant. Roof is on. Windows in. Get it out here. Come on. Tell me if it's good. You want to have that relationship with the building regs. Because my advice to you is, for the first one, have a main contractor. But for the second one, try and break down as much as you can. You want the trades answering directly to you. So you sort of like sleepwalk into being a project manager rather than having a main contractor. Because when that relationship sours, in this business, relationships are going to sour. Whether you're the perfect person or whether they're the perfect, it's just going to happen. The whole job doesn't stall. If you fall out with your electrician, brilliant, just get a new one. If you fall out with your main contractor, you need a whole new main contractor. It's very difficult to replace quickly, and the job will most likely stall. And if you're on bridging, that's money. That's money coming out of your pocket. And that is not something that we don't want, is it, guys? So you're going to have conditions that need to be discharged during the works. What could that be? That might be sort of like insulation. It might be reinforced flooring. It might be having a different type of render if you're in a conservation area. It could be a whole plethora of things. So make sure this gets done, because with the conditions, it's a bit of a pain if you have during work conditions to get done and you've done the work, because then you have to make holes and you have to repair. Same with building regs. Make sure your building reg people come up. And tip for your building regs, Kennedy's tip number 1, don't go to the council, go to a private one, because they're more flexible. The council will make you put like sprinklers in. They'll do all sorts of bloody bizarre stuff. And the danger of not listening to me, so this is why you guys need to listen to me, because the M in this partnership that buggered off and did his own thing, went to the council and they made him fit sprinklers in his 4-bed, an extra $2,000. In my 8-bed down the road, no sprinklers because I went private. There's no need for it. So you listen, or you don't make money. Listen to people who are doing it. I'm giving this knowledge for free. There's no excuse for you to be messing up your bloody your refurbs. Excuse me. Oh God, that's so good. Ribena is the drink of champions. So you're coming up to the end of your works. It's been fantastic. Schedule all on schedule. So last week it's called the snagging week. So if a builder tells you it's going to be 12 weeks, I always put on an extra week for snagging. So it'll be 13 weeks, and you divide the whole cost of the quote equally between those 13 weeks after taking your 5% off. So for example, let's do it nice and easy. He said it's going to take 9 weeks. He said it's going to be $100,000. I add a week on and I divide the $100,000 into 10 after I've taken off my 5%. So it would be the 95 into 10, which is $9,500, for example, I think. So you pay $9,500. And then the snagging on the Sunday, you spend your whole day with your glasses out, going around, writing down everything. And it should be pages and pages and pages. And what you need to do, you need to test every lock, test every light, test every plug, slam every door, really vigorously test everything. Look for creaks in the floor. Open and close the window. Like, be really meticulous and use everything, because stuff is going to be broken. No matter, even though it's new, there's quite a lot of teething issues. Like, when you've completed the HMO, the most repairs you'll do is in the next 6 months. It's a bloody nightmare, but it just is what it is. It's what I've found, is that you get 6 months, you're constantly doing bloody repairs. Normally toilet seats, buy expensive toilet seats, not cheap ones. And then you have to, and then you get like a period of no repairs because everything's sort of like weathered in and all the weak stuff has been taken out and replaced with good stuff. And that's why also I say you supply everything that you can see, because chances are pipes aren't going to break, but taps might, shower heads might, shower screens might. And then if you've got the one with the receipt, you're not relying on the builder to then head back out because if you're providing a service to tenants, it needs to be fixed yesterday. It doesn't need to be fixed next week. It needs to be fixed yesterday, because in this competitive market, you're all going to be competing against each other, and they're going to go to the landlords that fix things fast. So that's why I advise for you to be the ones to purchase everything. So you can go to Howden's, replace the door. You can go to the online store, say, listen, this is broke, I need a new one. And it comes directly to you, and you can fit it fairly quickly. Because if you go through a builder, you're going to constantly be battling and back and forth. Is it mine? Is it, I need to come round. I need to come. Like with the electrician, when stuff goes wrong, it's a bit of a nose to get them around to fix it, because they can't fix it today. They have to fix it next week on Monday, or have to come and look at it and then book them in next week. So make sure that is adhered to, because it will be a benefit for you. And that is going to be the end of the first session. So that is quite a lot there. Next session is going to be main contractor versus project manager, the benefits, the pros and cons, and how to manage different expectations. As well, we're going to touch on stuff that even if it's a main contractor, you're still responsible for, and that is CPD, and that is health and safety. Because so many, like I see videos of people doing walkthroughs of their HMOs, and there's no PPE. It's a complete and somebody can walk on, just like they did in ours. The reason why I know so much about it is because we had somebody walk on one of our site, close the site down, because our builder was on the roof with no harness, no scaffolding. So hold our hands up there. We didn't know, and that isn't an excuse. The fact that I can't say, sorry, I didn't know, I should have known, we're in this business. There's plenty of resources out there. The days of saying, I'm sorry, I didn't know, are over, because we essentially got fined for that, and rightly so, because we weren't adhering to regulations. And so after, we got them all high vis, PPE, glasses, gloves, and everyone needs to be on site doing that all the time. Because there'll be these people that just wander around, these health and safety advisors, and they'll walk on sites and test you. And I say, listen, let me see your electrics. Listen, let me see your volts, the volt things. Let me see your plan for your insurance for the build. Let me see your personal indemnity insurance. And if you haven't got it, they throw the book at you, because I think their wages are linked to finding people who are a bit dodgy. I don't know. That's me just speculating. And so, yeah, so that's a lot. So in summary, because this is a long ass video, and bearing in mind, I've only touched on these subjects. Each of these individual subjects could be hours and hours and hours of discussion to get it right and find out what's a good one, what's a bad one, which person to approach, etc. So you need to go out and find these people within your area, discuss, and you need to have them ready before you start the project, because it's very difficult to pull everything together. So this, if you're going to go into development, you need to be doing this before you found your first deal, contacting an architect, contacting a building regs guy, contacting a structural engineer guy, because you don't want to be finding it when you found a deal, because it wastes time. Because you might decide, I'm going to email this guy, he doesn't reply for a week, that's no good for you. Or I'm going to email this girl, doesn't reply for a week. You want them to reply that the same day. You want that type of relationship. So in summary, guys, step 1, instruct your architect. Step 2, planning accepted. Well done. Step 3, building drawings in detail. The architect will do this. Also, once you've got your building and drawings and details, you send them to building regs, and you send them to a structural engineer. Step 4, structural engineer is going to send you calculations. You will then send the calculations to the building regs. Step 5, building regs will say yay or nay. If they say no, go back to step 3, where the architect has to redo them. If they say yes, move on to step 6, which is discharge of conditions. Make sure you've got your surveys in place, or whatever the case may be. Make sure you've got it planned within the build. Step 7 is QS. If it's your first time, get a QS done. If it's a long project. Step 8, write your contract up. Make sure it has 5% of the total price held back for 3 months for when stuff breaks. It has a time constraint. Don't just do it on fixed price and say, I'll pay you when you've done it. Have it like weekly payments. And on that, don't select a builder that takes on more jobs. Select a builder that does one at a time. Weekly pay. Be prepared to say no if they haven't reached the agreed level of works. Penalty and a bonus for when they tell you how long it takes. Add a week on, and then say every day you do it. So if they do it in 12 weeks, brilliant. They get a week's bonus, and you want that sort of culture, because if they work hard, they need to be paid more. And likely, if they don't finish on time, they need to have a penalty. Write down what you supply and what they supply. So everything you see, you supply. Paint, doors, door handles, fire closers, strips, skirting, flooring, kitchen, toilets, toilet seats, lights, mirrors, toilet roll, everything that you can't see, bricks, mortar, plaster, floorboards, joists, roof tiles, insulation, mortar, all that jargon, you don't supply. Let them supply. So building is about to begin. Give the contracts out to the builders. Make sure you see at least 3 to 5. And also, when they quote, pay them. I know that sounds really, really random. Why would you pay somebody you're not going to hire? Because if the first builder is a complete knobhead and messes it all up, you're going to need to go to keep the job going really, really smoothly. You're going to need to go back to one of the other builders and say, listen, the guy was bloody mental. For some reason, he came in a rainbow bloody coloured hat or whatever and talked about meditating and all that. Whatever the case may be, there's some crazy people out there and they may not just work. So you're going to need to go back to the other builders. So you're basically setting a contingency. And if you've paid the builder for his time, because getting a quote is really, really, really difficult. You'll find when you get involved, getting a quote from a builder, you'll need to speak to 25 builders. 15 might come on site and you'll get 3 or 4 quotes because most of them won't bother. It's been my experience anyway. And the ones that do bother, pay them, because they've put a lot of work in, even if they don't get the job. So if it messes up, you've got a team there ready to step in, hopefully. I want you visiting your jobs at least twice a week. And that is not enough. Let me tell you, that is not enough. You want to be visiting every single day if this is a new relationship. If it's a relationship where they've done 5 or 6 bills for you, then I still want you visiting at least twice a week. Never take somebody's word for it. I don't care how long you've known them. I don't care if you've known them since you were from school. They're really successful buildersmen. Everyone thinks the sun shines out their ass. Don't trust anyone. Always question everything. And if you don't see it with your eyes or feel it with your hands, it didn't happen. So get up there, look at the job and pay the guys. Be a good payer. Oh, I've lost the steps now. I should have numbered them. Just rewind. It'll be fine. Post-work conditions. Make sure they're done. And that's the steps, a real overview. If you've got any questions, I've actually got lots of comments here. I'm going to try and open a new page to see if I can see these questions. Yeah, it's a really bad feature that you can't see it. But normally when I do this, it's usually one person saying hello. Let's have a look at the comments. There's a smiley face, brilliant. Penalties are normally weekly because of a weekly bank transfer. Penalties are normally weekly because of weekly bank. Can you elaborate on that, please, Danny? And thank you for joining us. How much penalty charge do you charge daily? Is it a daily? Yes. So, Samar, I charge 150 quid bonus. So if they finish 5 days early, they get 5 times 150 quid. If they're 5 days late, they get a penalty of the overall contract of 150 quid times 5. Okay, cheers. Newest first. How do I see them all? Oldest first. Right, comments. Let me open this. And that's the steps. A real overview. If you've got any questions. Good God. I don't know how to do this, guys. I'm going to have to do it. I'm only seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 comments. What I'll do for you is I'll write the answers rather than speak. This always seems to be the case. I can never bloody get their questions answered. So thank you for joining me. Hope you got any value. And also, this isn't me dictating what to do. This is just me saying how I do it. So if you have any suggestions, I'll be more than happy to hear them to how I can make this more robust. So this is one of the main reasons I do this. So if you have any suggestions or you disagree with anything, this isn't law. This is just what works for me. So it's always good to have another set of eyes on the process, whether you think it's crap or you think it's harsh or I should do this or I should do that. I'd be really interested to hear. Next week, as I said, it's going to be main contractors versus project management and why you really sort of need to be doing main contractors, getting on site every day, learning as much as you can, and learning how to manage the trades, because that's what you want to go into eventually. And then the third series is going to be stages of a build, because when you take on a build, especially if you're talking about main contractors and trades, once you go into trades, you need to understand stripping out, first fix, second fix, finishing off, snagging, and the process. Because if you don't get that right, you can result in having more costs by having to get the plasterer back because you didn't finish off, etc. But we'll go more into detail that on the following videos. This is a 45-minute video. You're lucky sods. I should be charging you the earth for this because this is gold. And if you want to see, actually, shameless plug, if you want to see how we do things, we're actually going into a new phase of development where we're going to be building a half of Birmingham. Well, exaggeration. Doubling in size for us, but we're only small. So we have a development day where you can come up. All the Wealth Dragon tickets are sold. So for those of you who wanted to come and didn't bother your ass to set the tickets when I reminded you repeatedly, tough luck. You'll have to come to the next one. There are still a few, I think there are 5 paid tickets left. That means we've sold 10 tickets and there's only 5 left. What you're going to get on that day, you're going to see how we do developments, ask me questions directly, where we don't have the poor user face where I can only see like, ha, 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 well done, cheers, all that stuff. We're going to talk about how we source the deals, talk about how we manage the trades, talk about where we get the numbers from and where we source mainly, and how we develop HMOs and how we get the product to market. And you're going to go around a big block of flats where we're going to turn all the flats into HMOs. You're going to go around a 7-bed, and then you're going to get to see sort of a project that we're going to build 3 flats on, 664. So oh God, I should know this off by heart, 16-bed. We're not going to go in it because it's just an empty house, but I'm going to show you the site, and then I'm also going to show you how we raised finance on that deal and like the package that we sent out to investors. And also I'm going to show you the numbers of a completed project where the ROI was a huge 47%. That's only when it's fully let and with no repairs and no voids. So it's not totally the truth, but in best case scenario, 47. In reality, it has been 41, which still isn't bloody bad. And guess how much money I put in that? Boom! 0. It was all investors. So that's what you'll get. Click the link. I've given you so much